So the common challenges and for transporting EV batteries are myriad, honestly. The regulations right now are not very restrictive. It states here in the US that all you need to have is a UNPG1 or a UNPG1 container, and that's about it. It has to potentially just be a large, rigid outer package that you need to ship a dangerous defective battery with. The issue comes to what level of safety that you want. Right now, legally, you can ship a damaged defective recalled battery in a wood crate, but obviously that's pretty counterproductive when you think about having a thermal runaway and literally transporting in something that's kindling. But not all DDR batteries are the same, to be quite honest. You as the battery manufacturer or somebody that has the asset yourself is the best person to truly decide at what level of danger that this battery truly is. So you can evaluate and say there's almost no thermal runaway risk here, so utilizing a wood crate is perfectly fine. But there are going to be suspect batteries that are throwing codes or overheating or are cause for more concern for safety for your facility and during transport, where it's important that you are purchasing packaging that is at the level of risk that you think the battery is associated with. The dangerous good regulations that actually says that the battery manufacturer themselves has to determine if it's damaged defective or not. So if you have a high risk battery, that's usually the kind of person that reaches out and talks to Americase. Americase is a custom container manufacturer that doesn't sell catalog items. You're not going to call up and say, I have a large format battery, here are the dimensions, give me your part number 1101, what have you. We're going to work with you to understand your needs. Are you needing protection at the facility level? So is this going to be a transport container primarily and exclusively, or does it need to work as a storage and transport container? What kind of materials do you have or equipment do you have to be able to work with these heavy batteries? It might be going to a dealership where the only thing that you have is the electronic pallet jacks and maybe a hoist that you work on cars with. We need to know that because we can design the container to work with it. If you have a forklift, we could put forklift traps on the top. So Americase truly has to understand what you have, the dangers that are present within it, and then you work with us to consult you on what does it legally have to conform to. Are we meeting all the regulations in the 49 CFR based off of where it's at and where it's going, what mode of transport that you're going to utilize, what equipment you're going to work with to load and unload the battery at both locations, and then the safety of the container itself. So when people reach out to us, it's far more consultative. It's asking a lot of questions, understanding your needs, and then designing a bespoke container that actually fulfills exactly what you're looking for. So the regulations, how they're enforced, is kind of a loaded question. So the fact is you have to follow the 49 CFR. If you have a damaged defective battery, you're going to have a dangerous good employee be able to offer it for shipment, and then you're going to transport it in some mode of transportation, obviously not by air because that's never going to get on an airplane. So you have to follow the regulations. Where you come into question is, as far as enforcement, is if you're audited. So if there was a DOT inspector that potentially was at the airport or even does a surprise inspection at your facility, they're going to need to make sure that you are meeting or exceeding the regulations as written. So they're not constantly enforced, but they can be, and you need to make sure that you have the proper packaging that meets the 49 CFR. You need to make sure you have your closing instructions. You need to have all your ducks in a line so you can say, listen, we understand the asset and the dangerous goods that we have. We understand that we're going to enter it into commerce through logistics, and that we have done all of it properly. From a storage perspective, you've got two other issues. Either based off the state or where you're located, you have international fire codes, and the international fire codes are only getting more stringent as lithium batteries are becoming more prominent in everything from the cell phones, what you have in your house, all the way up to now large format car batteries. So they understand the risk that could be posed if you had a thermal event in your facility. It may be an outside warehouse or inside where there might be interior features like drywall, other cardboard packaging, or something that could accelerate the fire. They're going to want to make sure that you have this container stored in a location that's safe. So that enforcement can look completely different. Do you need to keep this damaged, defective battery off-site in dangerous goods storage? Do you have an area where you can quarantine it outside of a building? Every area is going to have its own set of rules and regulations. Now, the one good thing about working with Americase in our transport containers is they do work as a dual storage container. So either we could have possibly done testing through one of our companies, which is Fulcrum Labs, where we can do full large format lithium battery testing so that you know for a fact that we have designed a container that can deal with the full brunt of the thermal runaway. And if that's the case, you can present that data to your fire code marshals or even your insurance provider who's insuring your building that wants to know that where you're storing it is safe. So potentially you won't need off-site dangerous goods storage, or you might not need to quarantine it outside of your facility or 20 feet away, or whatever the rules and regulations are there. We can present our data and our testing and say, listen, they have bought an Americase. This container is designed to hopefully deal with 100% of the full brunt of those thermal runaway, and you can get concessions based off of that. I think it's also very important that Americase is in a unique situation where we know too much. Because we are HSE, Hazmat Safety Consulting, one of the largest lithium battery consulting firms in the world, because we are Fulcrum Testing Labs that does damage defective lithium battery testing all day, every day, and have been doing that for years. And because we're a manufacturing facility where we customize our boxes, we understand truly the hazards that we're dealing with. And unlike some of my competitors, we don't like to say things like guaranteed for up to 120,000 watt hours or kilowatt hours or whatever the size battery it is, because batteries are like snowflakes. There are no two that are identically the same. Every manufacturer of the cell, every manufacturer of the battery itself, they use different separators, they use different housings, they use different chemistries, and all of these can react completely different in a thermal runaway, from actually behaving, I guess, good in a thermal event, as in not as bad as it could be, to being very, very destructive in its off-gassing and explosions or rapid disassembly. So we don't like to just say we make a container that can guarantee. We can do the testing to guarantee it, or we're going to sell you something that is such a high level of thermal protection that you have, if you don't have the bandwidth, the time, or the money to actually get the proof in the pudding and do the testing, we can work with you, consult you, understand the chemistry of your battery, and actually create something that is safe enough that you feel like you could go to these fire marshals or the DOT inspector and present the data, and or know that you purchased something that should, if you had a thermal event, is going to ultimately protect you. So working with our large format clients, we see all kinds of unique scenarios, but the fact of the matter is anybody that's contacting us, we're obviously a North American based company based in Dallas, Texas, and we service 90% of North American people and companies. So if you're in Canada, South America, or the United States, you're probably perfectly in our wheelhouse for somebody that's going to use one of our cases. And like I had said earlier in the video, the regulations around our in the 49 CFR by our DOT and PHMSA are not as stringent as they are in Europe right now. And that may be because they have more electric cars over in Europe, or maybe they're just a little bit more risk adverse over there. But in the international regulations, you have something that's called a green, yellow, or red, where if you are in possession of a damaged defective battery, you have to decide what level of danger it is. Now, that's still self-imposed, but if you know you have a red battery, they have actual performance criteria in P911 that will actually stipulate that you need to guarantee that if you're transporting this DDR by road, that it is in a container that can do three things. Basically, one, no matter how hot it gets on the outside of the box, they want to know that the outside of the box isn't going to start another fire because it's so hot. So that's a thermal test, and they want to make sure that in a full thermal runaway, you're going to keep the outside of that container under 205 degrees C or 450 degrees Fahrenheit. The second one is they want to know that you have no projectiles or flame on the outside of the box. That's critically important because obviously if you have projectiles or hot embers or flame blowing out the side of your box, you're potentially going to cause another fire. And they want you to have some kind of proof or data that you're buying a container that can deal with the brunt of that. And then the last one is they're going to say that it needs to do something with the off gases. Now that can be either filtering it, which honestly, as an expert, I can say it's almost impossible to filter off all the hazards, but it's important. But if you would like to introduce filters to your container, it's good, but it's not a guarantee. But you want to make sure that those gases are getting out so you don't have an explosion inside of the container, and you must buy a container that deals with that. Here in the US, we haven't gotten that stringent on large format batteries yet. So like I said, all it has to be is in a rigid outer container that has non-conductive and non-flammable materials surrounding the battery. It's a much looser scenario. So I also find that you might be a company in the US operating, but your parent company is an international company. And some of those companies say it doesn't matter what the United States regs are. As a corporation, we're going to treat things however our home country does. So you might actually have to, as an internal SOP, deal with the brunt of the regulations internationally, even though you're only moving your battery domestically. So all these things are critically important when you're talking to us, to know that you're not expected to do as much as you have to do internationally. But if you're going to purchase our container and ship it over internationally, you are going to have to conform to those rules and regulations, which we do with almost all of our containers.